All right, hey, what's up, dudes? Welcome back. Another video today, but it's gonna be something a little bit different. Now, I've said this before, but today is actually something different. We're actually counting down our top 5 cameras that are being used across streaming platforms. And I got a big poll coming in from Twitter that I posted out a question, and I got a lot of responses with over 50 cameras. Now, this ranges from all types of webcams, to mirrorless cameras, to DSLR cameras, to everything. So keep in mind that this list is gonna be pretty extensive, and I did a lot of calculations on who had what and who still has what they used to have and who's using something new. We're doing our top 5 countdown of all the cameras today that people are using for streaming, as well as the top 5 cameras from back in the day when I started streaming, and I'm talking somewhere around like 2014, 2015. Now, cameras are always changing, and there's always the new kind of standard of camera, so you probably are gonna have an idea of what the cameras you're gonna see in these lists are. Comment down below if you think you got them all right or whatnot. Let's jump in and get right on into number 5. Technically, number 5 was a different camera, but I'm gonna kind of put that in the same category as a later camera. So we're actually gonna talk about the runner-up for number 5, which is the Razer Kiyo. Razer Kiyo? Kiyo? I think it's a Kiyo. This camera comes in at about $87 for the standard version and about $200 for the pro version. Now you're gonna get a couple trade-offs here between the two. This camera's kind of new, and I think people are kind of gravitating towards it because of the Razer name, and it's got one kind of standout feature that I think a lot of people are seeing and think like, oh, maybe this is the camera for me, and that is that the standard version has a little ring light on it. Now, a lot of people like to have their own lighting and stuff, and everybody wants that ring-like look for some reason. I don't know, man. I see people trying to buy ring lights all the time. I don't really see the appeal. I can see it for maybe a model or something like that, but ring lights don't really do anything for me. Now, ring lights offer a nice little source of soft light. Now, this camera has that ring light, and it looks pretty good. They also have that pro version. Now, the pro version, you actually lose the ring light at the benefit of gaining more FPS. Now, the standard version, you can do 1080p at 30 FPS, and you can do 720p at 60 FPS, whereas the pro version, you can actually do 1080p at 60 FPS, which is great, and a lot of people like that higher kind of frame rates on Twitch and whatnot. So if you guys want that 60 FPS and you want to be at 1080, you're good to go. Now, if you always scale down your camera in a smaller section of your screen, maybe it doesn't really matter. So keep that in mind, that if you guys want to go ahead and get yourself the Razer Kiyo, and all you care about is, a smaller image, and you don't ever go full screen, then just get the regular version, go down to 720p, up that to 60 FPS if you want it, and maybe that's all people see anyways. Number 4, the Logitech Brio. Now, with the Brio, you get 4K resolution with 30 FPS, which is a pretty great amount of FPS for the price that you're paying for this. Now, you also get 1080p at 60. You can get it at 1080p 30. Now, you can also down-res this thing down to 720p and up your frame rate to 90 FPS. So if for some reason you need 90 FPS, you can have 90 FPS, or you can also do 60 and 30 at 720p. Now, for the most part, people are probably going to use this in 4K at 30 FPS or drop down to 1080p at 60 FPS. Now, keep in mind that there is different field of views, and field of view is basically how wide the camera is. So when you are operating the camera at 4K, you have a certain type of FOV, and when you have another type of resolution, you're changing that FOV, I believe. So keep in mind that when you do swap down and you downgrade to 1080p or 720p, you're actually losing a little bit of that wideness. So keep that in mind if you decide to get this camera. Now, the price point of this camera is still kind of high, in my opinion. It is between $175 and $200, so you're around that Razer Kiyo price point again. So keep that in mind. That's a lot of money to be spending towards one of these kind of cameras. Now, I'll kind of give you an idea later why I'm saying this. But this camera, $175 to $200, you get a nice 4K image, and it's the only camera out of all these cameras that can give you a 4K image. So keep that in mind. If you do want that high resolution, this is the camera potentially for you. Now, are you really going to notice the benefits of 4K on Twitch? If you're full screen, it might look a little bit more. You might have a little more detail. You might have a little bit better kind of sharpness levels and whatnot. But for the most part, webcams are all that. They're webcams. You're not going to notice a huge increase in quality. The sensor's already super tiny. You're squeezing. It's like if you look at a cell phone in the dark, you can only get so good, right? It comes down to lighting and how much you're pumping light onto somebody to really get a nice looking clear image with any camera. Number 3, Sony a5100. Now, this camera came out in 2014, and we are talking about our first mirrorless camera on this list, and the Sony a5100 is almost like it's becoming a little bit more standard. This is number 3 on the list, and it's for a good reason. It offers beautiful 1080p images at 60 FPS, and you can always drop that down to 30 or 24, whatever you want. You can also swap it over to 720p. So now this is a mirrorless camera that has interchangeable lenses. So now you get a lot more options just lens-wise in terms of not having to be stuck with that one lens or maybe a couple FOV sliders with a webcam. Now you can start to attach real lenses to a real sensor on a real camera that shoots video as well as photos. Now, this camera is pretty cool. It does offer a little flip-up screen for those of you guys that like to look at yourselves while you're recording or streaming or anything like that. That's probably why people started to get this camera, and that's why it's kind of at number 3. So you can kind of see yourself while you're streaming, and you don't have to have OBS open to monitor yourself while you're doing your thing. Now, the downsides of this camera, there's no mic input. So that's kind of an issue for me. I like to be able to have that backup mic support on my camera. But keep that in mind. If you decide to, get this camera, you're not going to be able to go vlog it around, and you're going to have to use the internal microphone. Now, there is an internal microphone, but it's not going to sound the best. Now, on top, there is a little flash, but there's no hot shoe. So even if you could attach a microphone, where would you put it? There's no cold or hot shoe on the top of the camera. So keep that in mind, too. You can't put any attachments on this thing unless you get like a cage for it or something like that. Now, when I looked for this camera on Amazon, I couldn't really find any good deals. I know this camera is not as expensive, I'm about to tell you. So keep in mind that when you are searching for this camera, check Craigslist, check eBay, OfferUp, Amazon used, and all that kind of stuff. But when I checked out on Amazon, it was like $1,000, and that was used. And you might get you might get it with the kit lens. It might not come with one. So keep that in mind too. But if I went over to a site like OfferUp or Craigslist, I was seeing it as low as about $250, give or take, and up. So go check out the sites that, may have a better deal, and make sure about that buyer protection thing. So if you try to get a camera and they send it to you and it doesn't work, you can get your money back. Number 2, the Sony a6000. Now this camera is a mirrorless camera, and it's almost exactly identical to the a5100, other than you get a little hot shoe on the top and a couple features here and there. But for the image quality itself, you're looking at the exact same image, same sensor, same everything. You might get a little better autofocusing, but just keep that in mind that if you're gonna get the a6000, you are getting now a hot shoe on top, but there is no microphone input on this camera. Why I talk about that hot shoe on the top is that you can actually get a microphone, but it's got to be a Sony brand one that actually uses these little pins to like talk to the camera so that you can actually get audio that way. But a lot of people don't want to spend money towards a separate microphone for that. Just keep in mind that if you get this camera, it does have that hot shoe mount on top, but there is still no microphone input support. Now you'd have to record elsewhere if you wanted to start to vlog or something like that. So, maybe take your phone and stick a microphone on that. And then you got to maybe sync sound with a nice clap or a slate or something like that. Now, the main differences between the A5100 and the A6000 is the 6000 actually has a tilt-up screen that doesn't fully fold forward. It only tilts up 90 degrees. So if that's a problem for you, maybe this is not the camera for you, and maybe you want to go back to that A5100 that has that nice full-on flip-up screen. So there you go. Now, when it comes to what it can record, again, it's just like the A5100. Both these cameras can do 1080p at 60, 1080p at 30, 24, and they can also jump down to 720p and actually go all the way up to 120 FPS. So keep that in mind if you want 120 FPS. Maybe this is the camera for you to get that nice slow motion if you do any kind of recording. But yeah, for the most part, I think most people are going to stick around to the 1080p 60 or 1080p 30 FPS. These cameras are basically the same thing, but they're so cool, and it's so nice you can change out your lenses to really cater towards your stream. Now, if you want to get on a giant telephoto lens, throw that camera in another room, but have it zoomed in on you, cool, you can do that. And if you want that camera literally right here in front of your face with a giant wide-angle fisheye lens, you can do that too. In the polar opposite of what I was finding with the A5100 on Amazon, this camera actually goes on Amazon for right now. I was seeing about $500 to $650, and that comes with the lens, and sometimes that's new. So pretty cool that you can get a brand new A6000. I think that's kind of why that camera is that's why it's in the number 2 spot, is because it's actually cheaper to find now, kind of secondhand and new. And you'll see a lot of deals pop up on Amazon that they'll offer like a lens and another lens and the camera and some batteries and a tripod and a GorillaPod and a lens cleaner and some tissues. And I don't know, man, they offer you a bunch of stuff. I went on this site called OfferUp, and I actually found the camera for $170, and that came with a lens. So you really got to look on the internet and find these cameras that you like. And if you want to get it, really try to hunt down the cheapest of the cheap. Coming in at number 1, we have the C920 coming in from Logitech. Now, this camera is by far the most used camera in the streaming realm today and yesterday. So this camera still transcends all time on live streams, I guess. I had one too. Of course I had one. Everybody had one. Everyone has one for the most part. And I know that once COVID hit, a lot of people try to get C920s and whatnot, but the prices started to skyrocket because everybody was buying webcams to do Zoom calls and stuff. But today you can find this camera for, I think, about $95 brand new. Used, you can find about $20 to $50. So if you guys are looking for a literally standardized camera for streaming, the C920 is where it's at. Now, technically, the number 5 spot was the C922, so I'm going to put that in the same category because it's basically the same camera. The C922 and the C920, both webcams, both USB webcams at that, USB 2.0. They both shoot 1080p at 30 FPS. You could drop that down to 720p, get yourself some 60 FPS. Wonderful camera. It does everything that you'd want. Now it is going to be a little grainy, a little bit noisy, and if you don't light yourself enough, it's actually not going to look that great. So just to give you guys a quick demonstration, this is actually the C920 in action today. I mean, it looks great. It's fine. It works. It gets the job done. Now, you can see it's a little bit more noisy than my other camera, and I added some color correction to this thing to kind of tweak it a little bit more to match my main camera, this camera. But if I actually put these two side by side, you can start to see the real difference between these two. I mean, both look good, but you're taking a little bit of a trade-off when you use a webcam versus a mirrorless camera. Now, mirrorless camera, you can start to get that shallow depth of field using lenses and whatnot. Now, with this other webcam, you're not going to get that shallow depth of field unless you get right up close to it so that the autofocus can track to your face. But then at that point, you're way too close and it's looking real weird. So now just keep in mind that with the C920, you do have to customize all your settings. You got to change your white balance, change your brightness, change your gamma, change all that kind of stuff. And everything's a slider. So you just realize that it is harder to adjust these cameras, and sometimes they don't remember their settings. So when you do go to save your OBS profiles and whatnot, it might not save the camera settings. I remember back in the day when I was using this camera that it wouldn't save. And every time I restarted, I always had to uncheck the exposure thing so it didn't auto expose, and I'd always set it to like the -5 or whatever, and then I'd have to adjust every other setting, and got really annoying. And then sometimes they freeze up, they don't work. Sometimes they hate USB 3.0 and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's where we're at. Now the C922 is a classic, man. I think almost everybody has used it, and it's an okay looking camera. It gets the job done. You know, you don't need to spend $1,000 on a camera and lens and battery supply unit and you know, whatever else you might need, a card and all that stuff to get your camera up and running, when really you could just spend 20 to 50 bucks on a webcam. So there you have it, man. All the top 5 cameras today, amazing cameras, and it's really cool to see the mirrorless camera start to rise up and start to dethrone the C920, and the A6000 might actually do that because of its price point, what it offers, and the crystal clearness of these cameras. This is a Sony A7S, so again, you're getting about the same sensor quality, just on a smaller form factor and a little bit more zoomed in and maybe a little bit more noise, and you know, but it's good. It's a great quality camera. It's a great starter camera. So maybe start with the A6000 as your first camera if you want that better production level. But I would always recommend, as a beginner caster, always stick with the cheap stuff and make sure you like doing it before you start to upgrade. So that's it. That's the top 5 cameras of today in 2021. People are still utilizing the C920, and I'll show you some stats right here. You can see how all these cameras stack up, and right at the top, you got the C920 sitting at 14.3% of what most people own today. And you can see just under that with the Sony A6000, people are starting to come in and starting to utilize those mirrorless cameras because of the quality and it being maybe a giant leap forward from the USB cameras that they're used to from yesterday. Now I can actually take you guys back in time here, and let's go check out the old cameras from back in about 2014 and 2015. Back then, it was all about the C920 still. And you also got the C922 there, as well as a built-in internal webcam from your laptops or your screens or whatever you have, or maybe even a cheap webcam that came with your computer setup. Now this is what people started with. I got this list today, so I don't really know everybody's start time, so some of these numbers could be off here. Like the PS4 camera could actually be further down, but you know, I got a lot of people saying that they started out using their PlayStation camera as their main camera for streaming, and I assume they were streaming from their consoles. I can actually show you all cameras combined, and that shows you that most people, and that's from yesterday as well as today, that most people have the C920 and it dominates the camera space and dominates streamers' rooms right now. Most people have the C920. A lot of people are jumping on that A6000 train because of its price point and what it offers. But then you also have the standardized C922, you got the Logitech Brio, and most people do have a laptop with a webcam in it. So I think people are using that internal webcam that's already built into their system. But that's it. That covers all the cameras that came out back in the day and up to today with what people are using for streaming. So I don't know, did you get it right? Did you get it wrong? Message me down below, leave a comment, and maybe you got the whole list correct. We got the Keo, we got the Brio, we got the A5100, we got the A6000, and the C920 as our top 5 cameras of 2021 that people are still using today. So pretty cool, man. I hope to see you on the next video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care, like and subscribe. And if you want more stuff like these top 5 things that streamers are using, hit me up down below as well and leave a comment. Like the video, it helped me out, man. It would boost this video so more people would see it. Yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. All right, take care, stay safe, bye.